Welcome to ClickFunnels Radio, the podcast that brings you the latest strategies, insights, and success stories from online marketers just like you who utilize funnels to grow their business. Our mission is simple: to help you unleash the true potential of your online business by harnessing the power of funnels. Join us every week as we bring you exclusive interviews and thought-provoking discussions that will revolutionize the way you approach online marketing. Here are your hosts, Laura Demetrius and Chris Cameron.
Welcome back to ClickFunnels Radio. My name is Chris Cameron, and joining with me as always is my co-host, Laura Demetrius. Good to see you today, Laura.
Thanks, Chris. It's good to be here as always.
So this is super fun today because I feel like we kind of have a full circle episode coming back. One of my favorite people on the planet is joining us today, Mr. Chandler Woodward. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because this is self-proclaimed, right, Chandler? Like not only Dave's oldest son, but I think favorite son too. Is that accurate?
100% proven. Everything. I mean, there's records on it too. We can find eventually.
I'll make sure we send this to Jackson and the others.
Yeah.
Christian and Parker. Make sure that they hear that first.
Totally. We'll have a debate on it. We can do the whole thing.
This is what I think is so cool when Russell wanted to, kind of relaunch this and brought Laura and I on. I just thought it'd be so cool to have you on because here's the thing. I want to talk about Dave for a second, and then I want to jump into a lot of the things that you're doing as a businessman that are really unique. But we've all known Dave as, the CEO of ClickFunnels, and now it's been 9-10 months since he passed.
Yeah. And it's 9 next month or whatever.
Yeah. Pretty wild. And I'll tell you, just it's been a gaping hole for us, just as far as, his leadership and he was such the heart, and you've heard Russell do tributes and everything. And so we know Dave is the businessman. And I was honored when I came on about 5 years ago, I had the chance to work directly under Dave for, 4 years and fell in love with him, not only as a person, but as a businessman. And so I'm curious, here's the first question is, since we know him as CEO of ClickFunnels, you know him as dad. And I would assume that he probably was a huge influence in you as an entrepreneur and everything else. Like, what was that like growing up with Dave Woodward as a dad, and how did that shape you?
Yeah, absolutely. My dad was, you see him on stage and you see him with this high energy, right? And like just giving everything he can to the people. And you hear so many times of like two different types of personalities of people, like, oh, what's their home life look like though? And I could like confidently say, and I know my brothers and everyone else would confidently say as well, like he was the exact same person you would meet on stage, at events, in the hallways as he was at home, where the most important person in the room was the person he was talking to. And no matter what, like it was crazy. Like, you hear my dad was always my superhero. He was the guy I looked up to and wanted to be and felt like he could overcome anything. And so when he was when he would go through life, I see him as a superhero. And then I hear later on in my life, when we're getting older and we're having more mature conversations, all the stuff he dealt with raising us, financial troubles, things that were just like not working out. And I never would have guessed that was happening because he was giving us his life, giving us his time as much as he could. Like my number one memory of my dad, he wasn't home a lot. Like when I was when I was a teenager, growing up, as much as he was when, he finally, because he was trying to figure things out. And the crazy thing is, so he was doing tons of stuff in the real estate space. And I just learned how to drive. I was just turning 16. So it was like sophomore year, junior year of high school. And he would do these crazy flights where he'd be, across the country doing some kind of seminar, doing with real estate, take the earliest flight or latest flight he could to get back to see me before I go to school, before I do something.
Aww.
And I would go take him to the airport on my way to school and drop him off in that hour-long drive. And this was, either driving to school, or he would even take a red-eye flight at night so he could just to spend as much time as he could. Where it was 12 in the morning driving to LAX, and we'd have this 2-hour-long conversation, just me and him. And so he was just like, that was me growing up, is he would give as much time and try to just separate, get me in a space, and my brothers as well, where he could just have that one-on-one time with me, my mom, my dad, my brothers, all of that. And so, yeah, he is, he's bigger than life than I ever could think of.
What
sure.
a testament of his love for his family too, to make that personal sacrifice of like taking a red eye, which nobody wants to take a red eye, especially after working your butt off and speaking with a bunch of people, just to have that hour with you in the morning of special time. And what a beautiful thing it is, I'm sure, to look back on that now and know you got that time with him.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like, I have two small kids, right? Like, they're not even close to the age. My dad had 4. And the 2 kids I have right now, like, they take so much energy out of me right now. I'm like, how do you do that with 4, with the work, with everything? And so it's just like, the more I get older, the more I realize how amazing my dad was. And so,
yeah, those things matter.
I love hearing that. I'm going to tell you a story that I don't know that you've heard, that I watched your dad. One thing that I really respected about him is it didn't matter how good he was or what position he was in. He was always self-aware and trying to improve himself. And it's easy, right? Like, you get into these modes. We have these roundtables, and I want to say this was FHL, maybe 2019. Okay. And he was helping Steven Larson at his table. Right. And he was getting like a drink, and he was beelining to like say like, oh, Steven needs something. And he went and go get him like a drink and was on his way back. And somebody tapped him on the shoulder, and he kind of turned. And he was like, oh, hey, 1 second. And then he kind of was going to go give that to Steve. And then I saw him take 2 steps. He took 2 steps and stopped cold and turned around and grabbed this person by their shoulders and was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was in a hurry, but I wanted to say hi. And he's like, so sorry if I walked past you. I was like, he had this moment where he just realized like, wait, this person came and they wanted to say hi to me, because ClickFunnels has changed their life or anything. And they had this amazing thing. And I think he handed me the drink, and I went and grabbed it and gave it to Steven. But one little moment like that taught me so much about your dad. Like, people are in such a hurry to get somewhere, but the one person mattered to him. And even if it took 2 steps to like realize that, I was like, that was the coolest thing to see. Because don't we all have those moments in our life where we're so hyper focused, like your dad, on business and everything else. But he realized that taking a red eye flight meant that he could spend another hour or 2 with Chandler. And that's, I think, was one of Dave's superpowers, is he would figure that out. And that wasn't easy for him. Sometimes he had to think that through and plan it out. But I respected that a ton about your dad. And I'm sure you have countless other stories that are similar to that.
Tons. Yeah. I think it was cool. So, have you guys seen that Last Dance documentary with Michael Jordan, right? Where he's he's talking about like, when he was playing in the league, and they kind of talked about like how this year's, these people in the NBA right now, like they would sit out on games and stuff. And so Michael Jordan was saying, like, when he would go play a game, he would say, there's probably some kid in the stands in the nosebleeds who's like, their whole life, they just wanted to come see Michael Jordan that day. And so he could never take a day off. And I felt like that was my dad every time of like, at those events, especially like Fun Like in Life, like my dad, and the crazy thing to my dad as well is like, he would never wanted to be the front, right? Like, he was always trying to make other people the front. He never wanted that any kind of really any of the attention. But the people who were there, like, he would, no matter who you were, he would try to like to make sure you were taken care of and that you had like just the greatest experience at an event, at whatever it was. And it was just something that's so special, where to this day I'm like, how, like, I get so frustrated today, like to this day, of like, how do I be like you, Dad? Like, this is so insane to me. And obviously people have their stories, and my dad is not perfect. I know that by far, but there's no one more who would give their best every day than my dad, and so it was crazy.
That's beautiful. And when we had our episode with Russell, where he kind of set the expectation of the future of ClickFunnels Radio and what this means, and how we get the honor of paying homage to your father and everything that he did for this podcast. What I love is that even though I never got to be in the same room as your dad, I get to see the legacy that he left in you boys and your family and in the company. So in a way, it's like he's still so present with us because of the impact that he made. And we feel that and we see that in everything that happens. So I think that's it's such a beautiful thing, because you mentioned he lived to let others shine. And you don't have to be just like him or do the same things that he did, or, have the same business impact that he did. But he did what he did because he wanted others to shine. And I can see that so well in everybody that he every life that he touched and how important and how much he valued those relationships. So it's really cool that that carries on and it lives with us and it's still here at ClickFunnels and with everybody today.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It is. Yeah. It's been awesome just seeing. There's an interesting quote, like, I don't know if you've heard the Hormozy thing, like where he talks about, like, you pass away and like no one knows who you are or whatever. And I remember when I heard that the first time, I was like, what? That sucks. Like, that is crazy. And I still think like, whoever will figure out what happens. But there's the people though, if you do focus on like impacting people during their life, like they'll carry that experience on the rest of their life. There's so many people who like the last Funnel Hacking Live was pretty special. And I met this year's is going to be absolutely amazing as well. For me and my family, at least, because my dad wasn't there last Funnel Hacking Live, we tried to get in there, but we couldn't. And just so many people would just pull me in the hallway, or I'd be walking around like, Woodward, do you know Dave? And, I'd have to do the whole story of like, yeah, he's, he's my dad. And they would share some crazy story of like, he has probably no idea who I am, but he did this so much to me. And they'll carry that on the rest of their life. And so I just think you don't realize the people you're impacting almost every day, where like you see, like you make a post and like, you're like, man, no one's really liking these things. No one's really commenting, but like you get a message someday, like, hey, that thing really like impacted me. And you're like, what the heck? I didn't know like people were no one's commenting, no one's doing anything, but like people are watching. And
it's
I just
so
think
much deeper
like
than what you think.
Oh, insanely.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I remember I was brand new. I was brand new to the company just like a few weeks before last year's Funnel Hacking Live. So everything was just like getting thrown into the middle of it. And I remember you and your family being at Funnel Hacking Live and just seeing the love and support that just surrounded you guys everywhere you went, walking down the hallway, going into the rooms. And I remember I just like watched in amazement at like, wow, look at the people that are just like in love with this family and everything that they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because I've recently had a couple people ask me about my job and they're like, well, like you say that you love it. Like what's one thing that you would maybe change? And my answer, like it was astonishing to even hear myself say it out loud, but it was, I wish I had started sooner. And that not only is a testament to how much I love my job in this company and the exciting, cool things that we get to do, but I realized that also meant I would have loved to be under Dave's leadership and the things that he did for this company, because everybody that I work with today is like, oh man, like this exists now. This process is here. This culture is here because of Dave. And when I say I wish I started sooner, like that still encompasses everything that he brought to this company too. And it's really, really powerful. And it makes me really grateful to be a part of it.
Oh, I love it.
This is legacy though. Like that is what I think all entrepreneurs want, is they want this impact over income. Income is a great, byproduct of it. However, that's something your dad was able to do. And even if you're not the face of the company, think about that. Russell does a whole tribute to him and he doesn't talk about him as a sidekick, or his Samwise Gamgee or whatever, but that he was kind of his guide. Like, and I love that. Dave was his biggest champion. And I know he was the biggest champion for Carrie and for you boys. Talk to us a little bit about how that has created a legacy for your family and then also for you as an entrepreneur.
There's an amazing quote that I know Eric Beer, right? He's in the ClickFunnels space. And so when we're losing my dad,
he's a stud.
Eric is amazing. He's so cool. And so he lost his mom the exact same age as I did. And I have 2 kids and one of them was very, very close with my dad, to the point where like he would, it was awesome. Dang it. Why'd you bring me on? Just kidding.
It's always different when you talk about your own children too, right?
Oh, insanely. That's always gets me because I was so scared because I would see Nixon play with my dad and I'm like, man, he's 2 years old. He's not going to remember these things. I'm like, and I just and last year I had my second kid just get married. I was just born. And I was like, man, she's going to have zero idea, who he was. And Eric was telling me this cool thing. He's like, when you lose somebody, like that pain, it never goes away. Like, and the cool thing is you hope it doesn't, because that's how you know that person meant so much to you. And it made such a huge impact on me of like, okay, cool. Like, it's okay to feel, sad. It's okay to cry about my dad because he was bigger than life. And then he also shared like, with my kids, like I can share, he said his kids never got to know his mom. And he says, but what I got to share with them was obviously only the good things. And so my kids, this is Eric talking. He said, my kids now have just the greatest relationship and greatest imagination who his mom was because of all the stories and things that they hear. And so they feel like they knew who grandma was. And so when we're doing that we'll do it, every week. We try to sit down and just talk about Papa, as who we call it, my dad. And, we pick up pictures of Nixon and my dad. And, and so that legacy, it's just, and there's also the other, another fun quote where it's like, you'll start going after your dreams, or you start doing things, or maybe rebellious. It's like you start going after rebellious things, or change, or going after what you really want when you lose your dad, because they're not there over like looking at you. Yeah. And it's like for me, it's the exact opposite. Like I feel like I still see, I feel like he's still there looking down on me and still cheering me on. We had a cool opportunity in Inner Circle where we got to go up and speak at just in front of some of the people in Inner Circle. And it was awesome. Russell had just walked in somehow. And so he was back there, behind this, he was at the end of the little hallway there looking. And like for a second there, I could see like my dad's smile and just imagine him. He's so happy and so proud. And the cool thing about, with my dad and the legacy he has in all of me and my brothers is a lot of people would always say like, oh, I bet, he's pushing you to be an entrepreneur. He's doing all this kind of things. And my dad was like, just amazing at like making sure all his boys and the people he cared about were going after what they wanted. And actually employed, like, I remember some of the people who worked at ClickFunnels, like they wanted to go quit and they want to go do their own thing. My dad was always trying to push someone to do their own thing, right? What do you want to do? It's like, hey, I have zero interests. And so my dad never put his interests on us. So like whatever we were interested in, he would be interested in instead of the other way around. And so like my brother Jackson was a perfect example of this, where my dad was not like the manliest of men, like he would never be able to go fix a car or do any kind of like, things that were like a typical man would do. Right. And Jackson is the exact opposite. Jackson loves fixing things, hunting, fishing, all these kind of things. And my dad never would do that. He was never into that kind of stuff. And, but Jackson got into it. And so my dad did, and he did that with everything, where my dad would like, whatever we were interested in, he would put, he would go study. He would go like, try to be the best at it, because he was insanely competitive and would try to beat us in everything. And so it was just, it was the best. Like
now I just picture him like stomping around in boots and camo.
Yeah. Like, and it had to be like, it's full out too, right? Like it was like the best things. Like he would not try to go, it's like, oh, let's go try it out. It's like, okay, my dad's going to go in.
He's not going to go small.
Yeah. So we went to go buy this, we went to go buy some guns and a safe and all these kind of things. And it wasn't like just some regular old safe. It was like, hey, what's the best? Like, I got to know everything about it.
That's right. Yeah.
It was awesome. And so that's the kind of legacy I feel like my dad, as a parent, like money, and you guys talking about income and impact, right? It's like, obviously my dad made an amazing amount of income and he did very, very well. And I bet you can talk to anyone who he ever met, is like the most important things for my dad was his faith in God. And then it was my mom, and then it was us, and then it was anything else underneath that. But that was like the biggest thing. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So there's more perspective on life than just going out and just making a ton of money. Like that's great. And that's the goal, right? Like you got to take care of your own. And, but once you do, it's all about like, hey, cool. Now everything's taken care of. You can now go and let's go help people. Let's go serve someone. That was what he was. Like my dad hated gifts, right? Like he hated getting gifts. Like it was that wasn't his thing. And so when we do presents, right? His birthday, Christmas, it was, my grandma, his mom actually has the coolest gift she would give him, because she understood that he hated gifts. She would do this thing called it was like a red letter. And there's a crazy story about it, but she would basically take what she would give as a gift and go do some either charitable thing or some donation, then write a huge story of that whole thing that happened that year. And so that was the gift for my dad. And it was this really cool thing that my dad always loved. And that was his thing, was experiences and service were like his number one thing. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool.
I mean, you it's funny because he didn't push entrepreneurship on you, but you even worked at ClickFunnels for a time and were like, man, I can't really work for somebody. And now you're off doing these incredible things because it's what you wanted to do. I want to dive into that for a second. You're doing something that is very, very interesting that I don't think a lot of people understand or know. And I'll lead with this. I know Russell would always kind of tell these stories about, for example, when Facebook acquired Instagram, they really didn't acquire Instagram because they were interested in the platform or the software. They wanted the audience. And you've created something that helps people facilitate this, whether it's Facebook groups. Tell us a little bit more about MediaAcquire and what that does.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. So yeah, you have like Russell sharing traffic secrets, right? Of like how much important it is to like have a show, right? Or have some kind of like instant thing. And it's been really hard. Like for me, like it was always hard to build it, right? Like it was always like, man, this thing just takes a long time. You have to either like nail it right, like focus a ton on the content strategy itself, focus on how we go viral. Like there's tons of things that go into place, or, running tons of like spending a ton on ads, trying to like get in front of those people. And my business partner, Raleigh, shared this really cool thing of like, he worked as a M&A attorney. And when he was doing these massive deals, they would always say like, we're not going to, like, instead of building it, why don't we just go buy it? And so that's like kind of like the whole thing of MediaAcquire is like, there's these amazing communities, people who have spent tons of time and there's tons of time, right, of building a community, building up an audience of these things, and either are burnt out, want to go to the next thing, never figured out how to monetize it, or just don't even know it's a possibility to sell. And we're now able to go reach out to these owners, get in front of them, and acquire these Instagram accounts, newsletters, Facebook groups, email lists, podcasts, you name it. Like there's so much possibility and so many opportunities to be able to go and get in front of this huge audience that's like already built, warmed up, and ready to go, And so that's kind of what MediaAcquire is we'll show you, we have the marketplace, then we've got like services and other programs and stuff of how to actually go and facilitate the transaction. How does it, and then find those kind of groups that are perfect for your business. And then as well, be able to go out and actually monetize that. Like, how do you actually squeeze the juice, which is, everything ClickFunnels talks about is like, it's the best customer acquisition platform out there. Right. And so everybody who listens as digital marketers, they would crave to have like access to Mr. Beast, The Rock, all these people who have these huge audiences. Yeah. So we're just showing you exactly, how to go either create some cool partnership with them to be able to have that, or go buy it out completely. And yeah, we've done it. We actually did it for Russell. We bought him an Instagram account for his the new Secrets of Success, right? So he's been talking about Napoleon Hill, acquiring all these cool books and doing all these cool things. And so we found an Instagram account that's Napoleon Hill focused, right? And we went and it had a couple 100,000 followers on this thing, purchased it, and now we can send people to his newsletter, any products he has. And said
genius.
And so instead of he's been trying to build this. If you go to his Secrets of Success Instagram page, it's a couple thousand people on there. Like, it's going to take a lot of time to like either get everyone to go follow that account specifically, or we just go buy it out and now have all that hard work of doing that is you shortcut that whole process.
Very cool.
And, yeah,
I would love to know, like, in terms of how you go about the acquisition. Like, is there a strategy for finding people who are maybe on their way out, or they're kind of just done with that list, or they're no longer in the business? Or is it more of a, they have a relevant audience, let's go after them?
Yeah. And so the two, two groups or two kind of like filters you go through, right? Is you have to get rid of the kind of audiences that have we call a leader group, right? Where it's like, that's the face, right? Like, I can't go buy the Rock's audience, because if I go buy it, I'm not the Rock. Like, they're there to learn from the Rock, right? If you go to a Facebook group where it's some kind of affiliate marketing with Chris Cameron, no one's gonna go. Everyone's coming to learn affiliate marketing from you, right?
From the authority figure, yeah,
exactly. And so we go find things where it's more like they're looking for they have the problem in their head. And they're like, say, these are groups that the community is solving, and there's really no leader to go and say, hey, here's the actual solution. Let's go this way. And so we go find audiences like those where there's no actual face where once I show up, there's not going to be like some crazy, like, who the heck is this dude? Like, let's get out of here, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we come and show, hey, here's how to either be the leader and go in and start pushing them that way, or you can continue to kind of be in behind the scenes and just kind of, push products different ways too. And so that's kind of those are for the transaction, you can find, ideally you want to find someone who's like, doesn't really know the opportunity is selling. Like, it's still a pretty good group. But they just never figured out how to monetize it. That's the real goal, where it's like, oh yeah, like I built this, we bought a local, actual Utah business owner group here, 20,000 members. You know, the group owner just had no idea really what to do with it. He just built it because he wanted to network with other business owners, and you buy it for $250. It's like, whoa, okay. Like,
no
awesome.
way.
Yeah. Like, it's just because they're either onto something completely new. And they're like, oh, sure. Like, here's, it didn't take me really it didn't cost me anything to build this. I just built it from scratch, and it just kind of grew over time. And so that's very, very cheap. Right. And so that's like very low, like that's amazing that you can do something like that. Most of the time though, like this other group we purchased was a podcasting one. And the person is, for podcasters to come in and talk about, booking, like getting on other people's, shows and stuff like that. And the reason the person started it is he got kicked out of a different one and was like, you know what, I'm going to do it way better. And started this whole thing and never figured out how to monetize. He's like, I just did it as more as like I want to compete with this person. Never. And so once we gave him the opportunity to buy out, he's like, oh yeah, sure. That sounds good. Like, pretty much accomplished what he wanted to.
Yeah. So you get to really see the value in different opportunities too. So does this include like social media, websites, communities? Like, is this a little bit of everything?
So we go after more. So what we're looking for is the audience, right? Like, if you're going to look at like the website and things like that, then you're kind of getting into like acquiring a business, which comes with more of a higher price tag and more of like due diligence and more like, how do we value this thing? And so that's the problem with like, we just go and say, hey, I want just the audience. And so if someone's just getting started, like I always say, let's go Facebook group first, and then we can go and branch into other ones. But as well, so I say Facebook group first, but if you're a master at like, I was listening to this one, I think it's a Warren Buffett quote, but he says it's 1 + 1 = 100. Like, how does that happen? It's just because you're one person who has like, you've got this product you build this huge product up, but you don't know how to monetize. You don't know how to like customer acquisition, or you don't know like fulfillment. And you bring another person who's like, that's their thing. Like, you can't put a number on what that is, right?
Yeah.
So you put that one person who has the product and the one person who has the skill. It's like there's just endless opportunities there. And so that's the amazing thing about this is you're coming from like, hey, I know what I want to do with this audience. The other person probably doesn't, or is just on to new things. And so you're going in and you're just acquiring just the audience itself.
Got it. Very cool.
So it's kind of interesting. I think thinking this through, are you ever like, when you say, hey, okay, I'm going to go pick this list up, are you brokering these deals then for other people? Or do you kind of like buy these and like flip them? I mean, is there an element of that? Like, okay, now I know what I have, and now it's kind of in the hopper, I can go sell it to other people. Or are you teaching people how to do that?
Yeah. So we don't really broker as much. Like MediaAcquire started as a marketplace, and I think that's kind of like the end thing. It'll be awesome to kind of keep that as the thing, as a cool marketplace. But to be honest, it's very, very hard to monetize. Like, it's really hard to make money on those things, unless you want to broker them. And I'm just not it's just a very hard scalable business in my mind. And so what we've done, when we launched our first business, it was in the mergers and acquisitions space, right? So people were looking to go buy and sell businesses. And so we started this Facebook group, and we're like, mergers and acquisitions for digital entrepreneurs, right? And we're spending anywhere from like $7 to $9 per group member. And, it was pretty good. We were pushing it through our audience, like through our social medias as well, trying to get people to join it. And so we got it to around like 2,000 members. And we were looking at it like, hey, this is just taking way too long. And so we found another one that was like the mergers and acquisitions group. And so the name of it is called Mergers and Acquisitions. And so we went out, looked at it, reached out to the owner, and it was around 6,000 members. And we're like, okay, how much, what would it cost us in time or money to get that? And we're like, it's pretty high up there, right? And so we basically found a way with like come with a pretty solid valuation. We bought the group for $5,000. And so we go and do this for $5,000. We announce this acquisition and basically say, hey, we're excited to be in here. We're looking to improve this group. But by that, like, we'd love to know kind of what your problems are with mergers and acquisitions, right? Like, do you have problems selling, dealing with brokers, all this kind of stuff? And we ended up getting all these questions, putting it in basically like, hey, how do we turn this into like a product? Sold the product for $2,000 3 weeks later, and we did $25,000. And so we basically 5x our money just on that. And then over the next couple of months, we do, $80,000 on that through the group. And now we have a couple people who are looking to buy the group for $25,000 right now. And so we basically
forget flipping real estate.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. There's a huge opportunity with this. And so
it's digital real estate. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're basically, you're learning how to like basically turn this thing into a cash cow, right? Like, this thing's monetizing it very, very well. And you're fixing and flipping groups, Instagram accounts, newsletters, whatever it is. And it's a huge market out there. We're not the only ones. There's people out there who do it as well. And now we're just kind of teaching it too. So. Yeah,
I was browsing through the marketplace on there, and it's just so many different industries and niches. Like, there's so many things to choose from. So like, there's something in here for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Like, it was funny. So my business partner, Raleigh, he owned a trampoline park, and one of his employees at the time was like wanting to get out, and like start his own thing. And so on his off time, he ends up buying this, I think it was like an Always and Sunny in Philadelphia Instagram account, and buys this thing for really, really cheap, and then ends up selling some merch on it, and gets enough money to be able to quit his job and go out his own way and do his own thing. And so even if you're just starting out, like, the biggest problem, right, most people have is like, there's so many products out there, you need an audience. And so that's what we've seen is like, even if you're just starting out today, like, go buy some kind of group, a newsletter, an Instagram account, something to be able to start at least getting your feet warm with promoting, with doing some like affiliate products, anything, and start making money that way is like way better than going out, creating your own product and try to build up your own audience from scratch,
Yeah. Finding big value and opportunities.
Yeah. When I go talk about partnerships with people, right? It's like one of the questions you always have on these partnership calls is like, okay, well, let's talk about the list size, talk about your avatar. What are these people doing? And that's the value, right? That's the value of a partnership. If you're going to go do something, is who are the people and can we get in front of enough of them? And then you run the math that way. This is fascinating. I think it's such a cool, different niche. So where's the best place for people, one, to follow you on social media, and then also to come check out more about MediaAcquire? Where do they find you?
Yeah. All my social, Instagram, Facebook is probably best. It's Chandler Woodward, no spaces, no caps. And then, MediaAcquire.com if you want to go check out and see if there's anything up for sale on there. It's probably the best place.
Guys, it's so cool. I'm on it right now. I'm browsing through some of these things, and these lists are awesome. Some of them are hilarious. They're very cool, very fascinating. Love it.
Well, we appreciate you, Chandler. You're the man. And thanks, honestly, for being so candid, too, about Dave. We all love and miss him, and his legacy just lives on through us. So I appreciate what you're doing, man, and look forward to seeing what you're going to do, not only with MediaAcquire, because I know there's a lot more, too. So I'm along for the ride.
Oh, man. No, thank you guys. But you guys have absolutely crushed it, too. I know you guys have taken this and done very, very well with it. And so I know my dad would be proud of the hands it's in. And so you guys are doing incredible too. So thanks for
means a lot coming from a Woodward. It's been great to have you, Chandler. Thanks so much.
Thanks.